On this episode of Mighty Car Mods, we are working on one of my favourite sports cars of all time. Welcome to another episode of Mighty Car Mods. I have heard your feedback. You want more sports cars, more mad JDM stuff that is fast, lots of parts, easy to work on, fun, just the ultimate driving machine, of which I have one right here. This, everybody, is my Daihatsu Copen. Now, it's a K car. I do happen to love K cars. I particularly love K cars with a purpose. This is a sports car. There's only like one or two others that sort of compete. There's the Mazda AZ1 and there's also the Suzuki Cappuccino. And the Copen represents the front-wheel drive of this. It does it exceptionally well. It's a very nice car to live with. They're popular throughout Japan, the UK, and we have a couple of them in Australia as well. And today, we're going to be adding some of these tasty mods that I've been waiting for quite a while to show you that are all here. All of this, and I'm showing you this one straight away, all of this is going onto the Copen today.
Something Japan does amazingly well is mad aftermarket parts for cars. These are reasonably cheap to buy, especially if the exchange rate is good like it is right now. They usually fit without too much hassle. We're talking upgraded brakes, ECU plugs, cooling mods, a huge intercooler and more. And all going well, I should be able to get these mods installed and the car on the dyno all in less than a day.
So there you have it. That is all the parts that I'm planning on installing onto the Copen. Stuff I ordered quite a while ago and have been waiting to put into the car. We're basically just going to start ripping it apart, work out where it all goes, install it into that mad little convertible sports car.
When these cars came out, Daihatsu had aimed to sell 6,000 cars per year, but they were hugely popular and exceeded that target for a good 5 years. And this model run lasted a whole decade, which is impressive for such a niche vehicle. The combination of the electric hardtop and the high-performance engine seemed to sustain it well beyond the toy status that it was given by some at the time. As we've covered in previous episodes, the driving experience is firmly in the fun category. The stock brakes on this car are considered a huge upgrade on other Daihatsus, so I'm going to stick with the calipers and upgrade the pads in the front and the shoes in the back.
So brakes are normally the last thing you think about when you modify your car, but in this case, first thing, reason being, I only ever had these sort of very basic stock parts shop pads. What I've got myself is some Project Mu JDM pads. These are awesome. I also have them in my K-Truck as well. They came from Cooldrive here in Australia. They're awesome. They are an excellent pad, and also the rotor itself is quite new because it's done probably 1,000 Ks or 2,000 Ks, so it's okay to pad slap. Generally, you shouldn't pad slap. You should do it together if you can, or get a machine, but they're so new, they've had hardly any wear. These will be fine. Put these in, have some excellent braking. We already did the lines and did the fluid last time, so just got to throw these in.
Choosing brake friction material is always a compromise. You can have a low noise, low dust, good cold feel pad that will be amazing for day-to-day driving, but do a lap of a track and they'll be a smoking mess. Alternatively, you can have pads that need heaps of temperature to work well, are amazingly durable on track but powder coat your wheels black once a week and grind through your rotors. You need to decide what your goal is and work from there. In my case, the car is only coming out if it's going to the track or going on a road trip, so a more aggressive pad will add to the fun, which is entirely the point of this car. Due to the single piston floating caliper on the front, the pad change is easy with just one bolt to pull out, a small push back on the pistons and I'm good to go. The back, however, not such an easy swap, but also luckily not something you have to do all that often.
I know I should redact everything I said about this being a sports car the second you see drum brakes on the back. Let's just remember this thing weighs nothing and it was built to a price point and it works and drums are fine. Changing drum shoes sucks a lot, especially when it's this old school design with the bearing and everything integrated, not just a slip over cover. So anyway, this has to come off, see you in 5 hours when it's done. So what's interesting about these is the bearings integrated into the drum, but also you've got the tone wheel for the ABS. So the car's new enough and fancy enough for ABS, but they still didn't want to put calipers on the back. Either way, this will be great for handbrake turns.
What you see before you is a jigsaw puzzle that must be completed perfectly or your car won't stop properly. Consider taking a photo at this point, and special tools like good long nose pliers and hooks made specifically for reinstalling those pesky springs can help a great deal. And an extra set of hands doesn't hurt either, even if it's just to give you a hug when you flick the springs into the next suburb. The back of the car does such little braking that it's not unusual for rear drums to only need to be changed once or twice in a car's lifetime. The colour also looks cool, even though I'll likely never see it again, so I'm going to enjoy that visual feast while I can.
Does anyone really like doing drum brakes? These are the smallest, like, piss-weak drum brakes ever made, and you still end up with bleeding hands. I know there's some specialist tools that help. It's such a pain in the ass. That's right, we're going to get there. Best convertible ever. Best sports car ever. Okay, handbrake is back on. Adjusted all the way closed. These have auto adjusters, like they ratchet and they ratchet out till it sits in the right spot. That's done. That sucks. But you know what? That'll never have to happen again. These last so long, and a car this light doesn't use much of the back brakes anyway. So, done. On to the other side. All right, drum brakes are done. Not a fun job, but at least it's not just servicing, it is upgrading, better friction material. Also gives you a chance to make sure all the grease and all the fittings and springs and stuff are happy, and make sure that these actual cylinders are in good condition, which it is because the car is not that old. So the disc drum thing with the bearing in it can go back on, give that a clean out, and a wipe out with some brake cleaner, and that is done. I've got to adjust it, then it'll be done. Don't worry, it'll be fine.
The adjustment mechanisms on drums differ between cars, but the next step is to make sure they're adjusted to engage correctly and also be in the right position to bleed the cylinders. In this case, I'm adjusting it all the way in, then using the handbrake and foot brake to slowly ratchet the shoes into the right position. They should grab onto the drum when the brakes are pressed, but spin freely when released, and the handbrake should feel good too. Next, I'm going to yank off the front bumper, as it's now time to upgrade the stock intercooler. It's pretty tiny, but this HKS upgrade is significant considering how little trimming is required. Only a tiny bit of plastic needs to be removed from the front bumper, and using the supplied brackets, it will bolt straight into place. While I'm in here, I'm going to replace the oil filter, which is in the most annoying position ever behind an engine mount.
So that is the old one.
And that's the new one.
That's right, the old cooler can go in the bin because the new one is bigger and better. Fabricated completely from aluminium, that means no plastic end tanks to go brittle or blow out under boost. It comes with some new pipework and brackets to secure it to the factory mounting points, and with just a small trim of the front bar required, it's an easy and excellent supporting mod. I've found an air hacksaw is the most precise way to chop up a plastic front bar. An angle grinder or rotary tool can work well too, just watch out for hot plastic flying around the place. While the front bumper is off, I'm going to augment the front headlights with a driving light. There's plenty of room in front of the radiator to fit this compact LED light bar. This is particularly useful on road trips where you're on the open road at night and can prevent unwanted marsupial companions in your passenger seat. This is wired to the high beam circuit so it's easy to flick on and off, but has a master switch meaning you can disable the system for when you're around town.
Martin, that is a super stealthy install.
And so is the intercooler. Considering how big that is, that just slots right into the little spot with only a little bit of cutting. And yeah, light bar. Good for road trips, especially in a little car. If you're out at night, these little headlights, not great, especially out on the open road. Kangaroos and stuff around, it's good to at least be able to see them. So I don't like the big lights hanging out the front.
No, I mean, it's a certain look, though, when people are doing, like, gymkhanas and motorkhanas, aren't it? Like, that's a thing that they do, having the light bars on there. When we went and did our gymkhana out in Nymagee, we installed some light bars on the RAV4. It's the first time we'd ever really... No, it wasn't. We've done it heaps. Sorry, world's best four-wheel driving channel.
Exactly.
But on high beams, it just lit up like it was daytime. It was absolutely incredible. That there is a Hardkorr light. That is the brand, available from Supercheap Auto.
That's right.
If you don't have a store near you, you can also order those. And then also, Martin, we're installing a radio.
Yep.
Also from Supercheap Auto, because this mad little car is getting road trip ready, isn't it?
Yep, it is a touring car. I mean, look, convertible, it's kind of the best thing to take on the open road, I reckon. But the performance mods are not quite finished because I do have an ECU. Now, these are actually a reasonably cheap way to get some extra power out of these things. It ups the boost, it adjusts the timing and fueling maps.
How much was it?
Might need to fit... I want to say it was like $650.
Okay.
it's pretty clearly a stock one that someone's rejigged in there and put a sticker on, and that's fine because these aren't always flashable, and it also means we don't have to do a full rewire. And this should be plug and play. We've said that many times before, but we might have to get a bit more fuel into this thing as well, which might mean fiddling with the fuel system. So that's the next job, is some of those performance mods, wire up the light bar and wire up the radio.
Dude, this is going to be a mad little car. It's going to be mad for road tripping. It's also going to be mad for a little bit of like track driving.
Yep.
And a little bit of trying to keep up with my car.
What about road tripping to the track and then chopping your car?
That's a possibility.
The Copen has done some hard driving since I first got it, doing multiple track days and long drives. I'm going to check all the fluids and replace the engine oil with some Castrol Edge 5W40. The ECU upgrade also comes with a new set of spark plugs. In this case, they are one range colder than the stock ones, meaning they will remove a little more heat from the head and combustion chamber. It is a good idea when you're adding boost or timing to make more power to consider doing this.
So impressive, eh? That is so impressive. In a car of this make, model, age, era, that just works so well. Got a massive ECU set up in there as well. It's like all very digitally controlled. Roof down. Let's change the ECU.
Step 1 to change the ECU is to find it, which in this car is hiding behind the glove box. Step 2 is to drop the roof, well, because we can, and we're going to have heaps more room to work.
Factory ECU, D-Sport ECU. D-Sport's kind of like STI is to Subaru or Nismo is to Nissan. It looks exactly the same. It even comes with a mounting bracket, which is cool. Not normally the way I would change ECUs in cars, because I like it when they are tunable and live tunable. You can see everything, but this is very simple and good bang for buck if it works, but you must dyno the car afterwards, in my opinion, to make sure it's not running lean. You will hear pinging if there's too much ignition advance, probably. You don't always hear it. But the air-fuel ratio is the big one as well, to make sure that it's not running too lean. So it's exactly what we're going to do. After this goes in and the car is all done, we're going to throw it back on the dyno to see what power it makes, but also to keep a bit of an eye on the tune.
The benefit of this swap is that you don't have to tune it, but the downside is that you don't tune it and you can't really check anything. But there's lots of Copens getting around with this ECU in it, so let's cross our fingers and see what happens.
Next up, I am sticking in a Blackvue Dashcam on the front. What we have learned from we've been on other adventures is that we often have cameras in the car, but they're not always rolling, and sometimes stuff happens, like we hit a kangaroo in the RAV4, and luckily we had some dash cam footage, which was cool. So I'm going to put one of these in, mount it up there, hardwire it in. The number one thing when you're installing a dash cam is make sure you can't see it, and by that I mean sit in the car, get in the right spot, and hold it up there so that when you're driving it doesn't take away from the experience, because a big thing sitting in your field of vision is kind of annoying, but you can hide them up under here next to the revision mirror. It's the perfect spot. Mighty Car Mods microfibers on the Mighty Car Mod shop. Click the thing.
This particular dashcam has front and rear cameras, the rear being a little bit tricky in a convertible because it's unlikely to work with the roof in both positions. But I also like to see what cars I'm chopping with the roof down, so it will go on the black plastic wind preventer thingo. Then I just need to find switched power, permanent power and a ground underneath the dash. It also comes with a Siggy lighter adapter, which is a simpler way to do it, but it also looks ugly, so permanent hardwired is better even if it takes ages to do.
Nearly 2 hours later, the dash cam is in. That took longer than pretty much all the other mods, but it is in, front and back, which is pretty cool. Hardwired. There's not much wiring up there to choose from. I have a few more bits and pieces to put on before I hit the dyno. One is a footrest, but guess what? Doesn't fit. This is cool though. This is a cover for the top of the radiator to help direct air through it. They've got a cool thing like a tow hook and a radiator cap. Between that and the ECU, it is now ready to be sent to the dyno.
These folded sheets of aluminium are a popular and extremely easy mod, and you'll find them in Japanese car accessory stores. The idea is that it forces air through the radiator instead of up into the engine bay, and I guess it looks a bit cooler as a bonus. The final piece of the puzzle is the D-Sport radiator cap, to increase the pressure of the cooling system, thereby making it more efficient, and also testing the structural integrity of the plastic end tanks on the stock radiator and the hoses. With all that done, it's time to head back to the dyno, hand over the keys, and see if there's any difference to performance. Once again, the dyno had to let out a lot of road to even register a power figure for this tiny car.
The Copen has had a round of extremely high quality, easy to install modifications, which is now pretty much where I want the car to be.
Mad brake upgrade as well.
Excellent.
A lot of work at the back though, isn't it?
Yeah, drum brakes are just not fun. But being able to get aftermarket friction material for drum brakes, that tells you that there's a lot of aftermarket support for a little car like this one.
Now, there were lots of supporting mods, obviously, as well, going on the car. Always an intercooler upgrade is a great thing to do. Even if you've got a modern car, we did it with the Golfs, we did it with the GTI, we did it with the RS3. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to make power, but it is a great supporting mod. And speaking of which, after all of that, when the car was on the dyno, we didn't actually make any more peak power.
Because we've got all the mods, but you actually got to use it. Now, this ECU upgrade is kind of old school, like getting a whole box and plugging it back in. And that old school means it's also not an easy thing to sort of plug in and diagnose. And normally with modern aftermarket stuff like the Haltex we normally use, you plug a USB cable in, you plug your laptop in, you go, oh, I don't have enough boost, I don't have the right AFRs, whatever that is. We can't do that with the Copen, but it is ready to have the boost turned up. And what is lacking is boost. The tuning's there, the timing's there, the fuel's there, there's just not enough boost in it. So that will have to be turned up later on.
There it is, another episode of Mighty Car Mods. If you want to support the show, check out mightycarmods.com. We've got lots of merch. We'll send it to you anywhere in the world. And look, we didn't make lots of power, but I'm pretty sure Martin's going to cope.
Oh God. We are the world's best four-wheel driving channel, just don't forget that as well.
We got some four-wheel drive content coming up. Some content.
Well,
we've got four-wheel drive content coming up soon.
It's our content.
Yes.
We do four-wheel drives.
That's right.
Not K cars.
Well, yes. All right, bye everyone.
Bye.